Hello, this is Christina Wallace. I hope you're all well, and let's get stuck in. So we're going to talk about fondant and gum paste, what to use with some of the things where it's not 100% clear. So first question, and the most common question, is figurines. What do you use, fondant or gum paste? A lot of people think that gum paste would be the way to go if you want to have some kind of a progression and move on with making your figurines. They think that maybe it would be easier to make stand-up figures if you use gum paste, etc., etc. My opinion is no. Gum paste does not make it easy. If anything, it makes life harder. I don't think gum paste is a very good one for sculpturing figurines. I think fondant is a better option. That said, once I tried to do something with the fondant, it was a last-minute order and I was trying to get away with using fondant and I couldn't do it because the fondant was just too soft, and I ended up using pastelage for this little character there, and I got away with it. I don't know why. I think it was desperation. Pastelage is even worse than gum paste. It gets stiff too soon, it doesn't show up details, it's just terrible, but it did work. However, no, don't use gum paste instead of fondant. If you're really serious about your figurines and want to give a fair chance to your efforts, get Saracino. Saracino is fantastic. Saracino is something you can make stand-up figures with. If you're using fondant, be prepared that even your best efforts would still render some limitations in your figurines. So the stand-up figurines, it would be only possible with a bit of a wire inserted in them, on maybe toothpicks or something along those lines. I mean, it is possible, I guess, to get very unusual results with fondant, but then you have to be really, really skillful. So the next question is bows. How do you make these bows, which are not just flat sitting on the cake, but which actually show this little bow loop? I hope that makes sense. And my answer to that is use 50-50. 50-50 is, as the name suggests, half gum paste and half fondant, and it just rolls thinner. It's a little bit harder while still being perfectly edible, and it just allows that bow, once dried, to sit nicely and thinly and firmly in a really nice, lovely shape on your cake. So yes, definitely for me it's half-half. With just gum paste, it will be too crunchy for a cake in my opinion, and with fondant, very, very likely to fall under its own weight and not roll that thin anyway. So I am not big on just using fondant for bows. I think it's unnecessary. Now half-half, with fondant, what you could do, you could just take a little bit of fondant and dip it in Tylos instead of having a separate gum paste by your side and mixing it half-half. You could just keep mixing fondant in Tylos, mixing it and seeing how you like it, and then giving it a try. So 50-50 also tends to dry quicker. Now borders on cake. Thin borders on cake, just like in these examples of my cakes. Borders on cake, the same thing, 50-50, or maybe fondant dipped in Tylos. It ends up to be not crunchy enough to interfere with the cake, and yet it sits on it really, really nicely. And if it's a top border, it's also not very heavy because it's thinner, so it's more likely to just stay put in there and less likely to crack, etc., etc. So yes, definitely 100% 50-50 for me. Just gum paste though is a bit too crunchy, so yeah, 50-50 for that. Now the very, very popular Bas-relief effect. What to use? Well, because it often covers so much of the cake and is so thick, definitely fondant. 50-50 won't work, not only because as a big chunk of a cake it's going to be a bit too hard and inedible. There's another thing. The further it moves away from fondant and so it becomes rubbery, your paste, the less responsive to molds it is. And when it comes to bas relief, more than anything, the small detail is so important. So yeah, Bas-relief, full-on fondant. Make sure it's supported well. Start it at the bottom of the cake and work your way up, so the bottom Bas-relief supports the top, and make sure it's glued properly. I never had any problems just using water and I don't know, very cheap shop-bought fondant. If you have problems with that, try maybe gluing it with piping gel, or look further into it, maybe using a bit of glue. But yeah, my vote is with fondant for Bas-relief and heavy borders, things like that. And by the way, when we talk about heavy borders, just look at this cake. You know, this is, because it's my cake, I know what's gone on. It's a fondant, 100% fondant, and it sits right in the middle, and it's very thick. So I just glued it with some water, and this fondant is very cheap. So if it's possible to do with this bigger border, I think you could do it with any border. But here I actually used a piece of cardboard around the cake to make sure that my border really dries, so the cardboard was supporting it. Otherwise it probably would have slid down or done something which I wouldn't have wanted it to do. And the last bit I'm going to touch on here is flowers and figurines on children's cakes. I would say that in general, for children cakes, it's more than acceptable to just make nice figurines out of fondant. Children cakes call for less detailed and chunkier figurines anyway, and so this is it. Obviously, if you're making a cake for competition, I would 100% recommend just to use Saracino for your figurines and many other things. Try it out. It's absolutely lovely. But yeah, for commercial use, it's quite expensive. So children cakes, don't bother with gum paste. Even for flowers, it's too crunchy, it's choke hazard, and children would love your fondant and they would just sit there and eat it, unlike grown-ups. Unlike most grown-ups. And this is me for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it on your social media. It really helps my channel. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you all next